All right, I'm going to try to get myself together now. Um, so, we're going through this sermon series right now through the book of James, as you should know by now. If you don't, either you're brand new. By the way, I'm Pastor Austin. Um, but if you're not new, then you're sleeping during church, which I'm okay with too, because sometimes we need to rest in the Lord's house. But I ask that you go ahead and just stay awake for this one, all right? So we've been going through this process, through this section called the trials that James is kind of trying to communicate on. He's trying to help us understand why trials actually matter to us as believers in Jesus. I mean, part of it has to kind of go about with the idea that if you've been on this earth for more than an hour, you're going to have some struggles. And you're going to learn pretty quick that it's not fun. But outside of that, our own Lord struggled. Our own Lord had trials. And he showed us on a daily basis how he was able to overcome. And how he living through the faith in his own Father and the mission that he was sent on, he was able to accomplish what he was set out to do. So we need to always keep that in mind. This is not a new thing to us. We need to kind of just suck it up and understand that this is part of life now. So today we're going to get into verses 12 through 15. Now I'm sure you can kind of see this very interesting little title that I gave this, The Devil Inside. And it's lowercase, so it's clearly not the devil inside of you. But there's something else going on here. And our brother James is going to try to communicate this idea as best as can. And I'm going to try to communicate it to you the best I can. So when I came to this, I was reminded of a story in my own life when I was in the Army. When you first go into the military, you have to do this fun thing called basic training. And this is where they spend about 3 months screaming at you and making you do lots of push-ups and teaching you how to hate your life, with some training kind of dispersed throughout there. But I was remembering there's this one moment where we go to the range, and this is at Fort Benning, Georgia. So this is like hua, hardcore infantry installation, like the best of the best of the infantry. This is where they get trained. So like I got some pride that me as a signal guy, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, for my basic training. But we had about 300 soldiers going through the range that day, and so it's a major range. It's about 100 yards for the shot. And with this range, the way it's designed is you can get as many soldiers to go through as fast as possible, but the only way that works is you actually have to have soldiers at the other end of the range being shot at so that they can switch out the targets so you can get as many soldiers through as fast as possible. So that sounds kind of crazy, right? It sounds pretty stupid. Why would you who are trained soldiers, spend time shooting at them? Well, let me kind of help you understand something. First of all, we as soldiers, and I was part of that target detail, we were in full battle rattle. That means we had our helmet on, we had our flak vest, or we had our body armor on, and we were fully geared out for combat. They would take us down, and before they began the range, they would explain to us the process at which this was going to happen. There was going to be the volleys. Once the volleys finish, the signal will be given. We run out with the new targets, we replace the old targets, and we run back so that the next volley can come. So where we were is we sat behind the berm with our backs to the firing line. And the berm, we had about a foot and a half of berm over our head. And this is standing, okay? That's where we are. Now, we have the equipment, we have the instruction, and our drill sergeants are there directing this whole affair. They've told us what we need to do and how to keep our heads out of the line of sight. So all we have to do is hide behind this berm, and we're going to be fine. Is there anything about this situation that is difficult? It's actually super, super easy. The only thing you have to deal with is the crack of a bullet going over your head, right? Sometimes you can feel the thudding of the rounds in your back. But other than that, it's a completely safe situation. It doesn't sound safe, right? But it is. It's actually completely safe. We're geared out, we're hiding behind the berm, and our drill sergeants, our commanders, have given us the instructions of how to survive the situation. We have been set for success. Both those who are shooting at us and those who are trying to provide the opportunity for them to shoot a target. Go ahead and just let that gestate in your brain while I continue on. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Now, is this anything new to you? I'm pretty sure for the last, 4 weeks now? 4 or 5 weeks? This has kind of been being said over and over and over and over. In fact, this harkens all the way back to verse 2 of chapter 1 of James. It's almost a complete rehash. So is this pretty simple to understand? Blessed is the man who remains steadfast. What does steadfast mean? Does anyone remember? Say again? Stand firm. Great, that's the Greek. What about the Hebrew meaning of stand fast? Hope. Hope. To stand firm in the hope of the covenant to be completed, right? Old school Jewish mentality for the covenant, the Sinai covenant coming to completion, which it was completed in Jesus. So if the covenant, the promise has been completed in Jesus, why are we still remaining steadfast in hope and standing firm in the face of adversity? Why? Because we have still one more hope. That one day, our Lord Jesus will return with a drawn sword to take back what's his, to deliver his people, to defeat the dragon and save the maiden, and they'll live happily ever after. The end. Oh wait, no, the beginning. What a wonderful fairy tale that is true. It's a true fairy tale. And we wait for the King to come to save us. But it's only if we stand fast under the trial. What is the trial? We've talked about different types of trials, right? The trial of being in traffic. Say again? Obstacles, absolutely, right? The struggles. How many of us are struggling with losing our eyesight right now? Yeah? Is that a test? Is that a trial? Because you're having to deal with something that you never had to deal with before. Why me, God? Why now? What about losing your hearing? I'm 37, but I'm actually going through a process right now. I'm starting to lose my hearing. Why me? This isn't fair. I love playing my instruments. How can I do that if I can't hear it? What about those of us who are having failing health right now? Right? I mean, there's some of us that aren't here today. I'm assuming it's because of sickness. I mean, I had my own bout of sickness this past week. We're all facing these trials of life. And it really gets in the way of us trying to do the right thing, because I know when I get sick, I get grumpy and I become a little terror. Right? And I start whining, complaining, and give me my soup, and it's pretty pathetic. But it's still a trial. Are we persevering in that? Right? Is our character, is our attitudes, is our what's the other one? I just priorities. Thank you. Man, I just can't believe I forgot all that. Our character and attitudes, our priorities. Are these things being transformed and changed and buffered and strengthened at these moments? Or are we just looking for a reason to complain and play the victim? Well, it says that only those who hold steadfast in this, they will receive the crown of life, eternal life, as it is promised by God to those who what? Fear him? Love him. Wow. Those who love him. How many of us feel like we love God like right now? Perfect. How many of us question if we love God? Oh, I do. Seriously, I do. I question, do I actually love God? I try to do the right thing. I try to make sure that I don't use too many coarse words. I try not to lose my temper on my kids, and yet I don't really show the image of God all that much, which makes me question at times. But I really, really want to be with him. And so I still try to stay in the fight. And I think that's what it means to love him. Even though you don't feel like you love him, you're still trying. You're still pushing forward. And even when you feel disheartened, you know he's got me. He's got my back. I just got to keep doing what he wants and love the things that he loves. But that's not all this sermon's about. Because then we get into this part. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. So, newsflash, I'm going to start bursting some bubbles today. I'm going to start stepping on people's toes, and I'm going to start challenging the way we think about this whole idea of temptation and sin. So when we're tempted, how many of us has the tendency says, well, God he's given this to me to what? Test me. And then you fail at that. And then we say, God, why did you? Hold on a second. Is it God's fault? How many of us has ever heard this whole thing of why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Why did God allow Adam and Eve to exist in the garden with that fruit if he knew they were going to eat it and then we were going to sin and all? Anyone? The problem is the question of why did God allow that stupid tree to exist in that garden knowing that they were going to eat it? The way that question is phrased has already set up a conclusion that God intentionally tempted Adam and Eve to cause them to fail. That is the way that question is phrased. Why did God tempt Adam and Eve for failure? Is that what God did? Well, how do you know? Give them a choice. The thing is, what's the point of a test if there's no risk? It's no longer a test. The trial that you are put under isn't for God, it's for you. But let's talk about the word temptation. What is temptation? It's simply an event, a moment of testing to see what choice you're going to make. Interesting thing. It says God is not tempted. God cannot be tempted, and he does not tempt himself. Okay, so that means God, he is outside of this whole idea of sinning. Okay, because temptation means there's the potential to sin. God cannot sin, therefore he cannot be tempted. He says that he doesn't tempt. That means God is not a source of evil. He is not intentionally setting you up to fail, to fall into sin. What's interesting is when you look at this, you can go to, you can go here. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 16, which gets repeated in Matthew 4:7, which gets repeated in Luke 4:12. It says what? You shall not put the Lord your God to the test. Well, you see that ... Okay, I intentionally ... dotted that because I want to, symmetry. But in truth, this event is talking about Mara, the time of testing. It was after Israel had crossed the Red Sea and they were moving their happy little selves to Mount Sinai. They start whining and complaining. We're thirsty. We want something to drink. Moses, do something. And Moses goes to God and says, God, you need to help me. These people are about to stone me. They're going to kill me if I don't give them something to drink. And then God says, okay, go smack the rock. Water's going to come out. There you go. That whole event is called testing, Mara. Why? And then it says to not put God to the test. And that's the event it's talking about. This moment where they were whining and complaining about getting water. They were putting God to the test. How? Because this is a moment. Now let's recap. Israel was in Egypt. They were slaves. God miraculously frees them from Egypt. He miraculously provides for them to cross the desert to the Red Sea. They're cornered by the enemy. They're about to get overwhelmed, and what happens? Fire and smoke and clouds come from the sky and block the way of the Egyptians, and then Moses puts up his staff, and the Red Sea opens up, and walls of water, and the whole people of Israel escape miraculously. Has not God provided for them this entire time? Since Abraham, he multiplied them to the number of the stars. He safeguarded them in enslavement to Egypt. He's been with them this entire time, and they have the audacity to say, we're thirsty, God doesn't love us. They're testing God. They're saying, prove that you are our God. Prove to us that you still care about us. Did you, it was like 3 days ago, buddy. And you're seriously going to do this now? This was the testing of God, and God he didn't give in to it. What did he do? He provided. Even though he wanted to wipe those brats off the face of the earth, he still provided for them. Going on. Proverbs, man, this is such a good one. When a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. How many of us have ever experienced this before? Yeah, me too. Me too. When a man's folly, whose folly? Man's folly. So it's not your fault, it's my fault. So when my folly brings me to ruin, so when I make a stupid choice and I say, this should be a good idea, it's like, oh no, that didn't work out. Curse you, God. Like, seriously, that is the idea. You blame God for the consequences of your stupid choices. How many of us, oh, thank you for participating, because this is so true. This is who we are. Broken people who are just nincompoops. And yet, James says, do not blame God. Do not even think to utter the words, God is tempting me. There's so many stories that shows when God tests people. For what purpose? For their growth. For them to not only see who they are, but to see the goodness of God. Here we go. This is where we're going to start getting into some good stuff now. But each person is tempted, this is James again, when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it was conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. All right, let's go through this little by little. Each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Now, this is easy to look at all the sinful desires that we have in this world, but let's pump the brakes real quick. Let's go back to Genesis. Let's go back to that moment when Adam and Eve, they're hanging out hand in hand in the garden, and they come to the middle of the garden, they have that tree, and they see a serpent. And that serpent starts moving his jaws and starts enticing Eve. Do you remember why Eve even made the move to take the fruit? It says that she saw that the fruit was pleasing to the eye. It was good for food, and it was good to make one wise. So let's think. Is it wrong to appreciate beautiful things? No. Men, is it wrong to appreciate the beauty of women? No. Okay, there's a lot of beautiful ladies. Is there something wrong with taking that beauty too far? See, there's the good things of God. He makes good and beautiful things. And yet, because of our sinfulness, we twist that up, and our desires become all kinds of janky. There's nothing wrong about the beauty of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's pretty fruit. You can appreciate the beauty, but that's where it stops. It was good for food. Oh, is there anything wrong with eating food? No, that's what we need to do to live. But what if we take food too far? What if it becomes not just about sustenance, or let's be honest, enjoying a nice steak or enjoying a beautiful 4-5 course meal? There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. Why? God created it. He created the very people who developed the skills to make that beautiful food. When does it go wrong? When it's abused. When it becomes about the food and not about the one who made the food. Specifically, God. Right? She saw that it can make one wise. Okay, again, I love knowledge. Like, I am obsessed with research and studying. I have like 6 or 7 things on the burners at any given point where I'm studying something. I love research. I love the acquisition of knowledge. I love developing new skills. Is that wrong? No. Why? Because God wants us to learn. He wants us to understand who He is. He wants us to study His creation. Because when we study His creation, what do we learn? We learn about Him. All right? It's like studying a beautiful Rembrandt. Okay? You see the beauty and the artistry of the artist, and you learn something about the artist. And the way he does his strokes, the way he utilizes colors, the way he utilizes contrast, and whatever else. Whatever. Anyways, all I'm getting at is there's nothing wrong with knowledge and obtaining it. When does it become a problem? When it becomes an obsession. It becomes a problem when I would rather do research than to spend time with my family. This is the truth. This is who I am. I get so obsessed with learning new skills, obtaining new knowledge, that I ignore my own family. Okay? My desire for knowledge leads me to a place of sin. So as you can see, this isn't just about the evil desires of our hearts. This is even about the good desires of our hearts, the desires that God has implanted into us. It's those very things that if we allow them to take control and we do not put a brake on that sucker, and we say, no, I'm going to own you, you're not going to own me, that it says right there, desire when it has conceived. Okay, conceived. Ladies, what does that mean? Conceived. I'm a guy. Say again. Okay, you're getting pregnant. That means something is gestating inside of you. Okay, you got a little life sucker. That's all I can amount it to because I'm a guy. But you got this little guy in you who's like, feed me, Seymour. And he makes you nauseous, and he gets you all kinds of worked up, and he starts kicking in the bladder. And then, man, you start using some colorful language, right? That's what this conceiving is. You start working over on it. It starts becoming the center of your little world. You start kind of playing around with the idea. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it going to look like its father? Is it going to look like me? What name should I give it? Right? You start having this kind of love for it. You start really thinking more about it. And then it gives birth to sin. The more you obsess on it, the more you work it over, that's when it births sin. It becomes a point where it's no longer fun to think about it. Now I want to go do it. And then it's that sin. It's finally that thing that happens. All right? Congratulations, it's sin. When it is fully grown, that's a really fun word, because that fully grown is actually the same word that's used in verse 2, 3, and 4, where it talks about bringing oneself into completion. One who perseveres, stands fast in the trial, and they're brought into completion, perfection. Oh yeah, it goes for the inverse as well. When that sin comes fully grown, when it really has taken control, that's when that's when death comes on. So, if I look carefully, I'm not seeing anything that says when the Lord tempts you. I'm not seeing anything there that says when Satan tempts you. It says when you tempt you. You are you're your own fault. You're your own problem. That's what this says. Does this negate the idea of Satan potentially tempting you? No, it doesn't. I mean, we see that in the garden. But is it every single time? No. No, we're our own issue. So anyone that says, well, Satan's been really working on me this past week. No, you've been working on yourself. You've been trying to muster up that courage to go and do that thing that you've been wanting to go do. I don't say this to be mean or hurtful or harsh. I'm saying this because this is my problem. And if it's my problem, the percentages are in my favor to assume that at least one more person here struggles with this as well. Right? So we need to lay off this idea that, well, Satan. No. Let's go ahead and just say it this way. The enemy. We give Satan way too much credit, guys. Way too much credit. The enemy. You know why I like the word enemy? Because there's more than just Satan. There's more at play than just him. There's all kinds of minions and allies of the evil one who is working on all of us. But the majority of the time, they don't have to work very hard. You give a kid a video game, they're going to play it. You allow them to see a piece of candy on the counter, they're going to take it. Has nothing to do with the enemy. It has everything to do with us. So, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. Let me say that again. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. What does that mean? What you're experiencing when it comes to temptation is nothing new. Everyone experiences it to some capacity, right? It's nothing new. We all experience the same thing. Different capacities for different people. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way to escape, that you may be able to endure it. My brothers and sisters, this is probably one of the most misused and misquoted passages that I could think of. Because most people will say it how? God will not give you too much that you can't handle. That's how they will say it. Wrong. Wrong. Thanks for playing. You lose. That's completely false. I can honestly tell you, God gives us way too much than we can handle. You know how I know this? Israel. Moses has said multiple times said, God, kill me already. I can't deal with these people. Yeah, that's beyond his capability to handle. He himself, he was even admitted, I need to, by the wisdom of my father-in-law, get judges, get other wise people on board because these people are going to drive me nuts. It's too much. I can't handle it. So, wrong. God will give you more than you can handle. He will give you more than you can handle. What this is saying is he will allow temptation to occur in your life, but he will not allow a single temptation to enter your life that you do not have the ability to overcome. Not only that, but he will empower you to do it. Not only that, he will give you the doorway out with the flashing neon lights that says, exit through here, buddy. And while that's going on, we say, Lord, give me a sign. Anything besides that. I'm an idiot. Hello, my name's Austin. I'm an idiot. Thank you. But this is the truth. A lot of our problems are actually self-generated. We know the expectation. We know what God actually wants us to do. Like, we can all quote poorly the Ten Commandments. We can all do it. We can all go to Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, which really sums up the Ten Commandments. We can all do it. And yet we're still going to say, well, it's not my fault. If so-and-so didn't say, if God did not allow, no, own it, guys. Let's own it. Let's be honest with this and just own it. Because if we're going to allow our victimhoods and our whining and complaining and our own excuses to get in the way of pursuing God in love and holiness, then what we're actually doing is putting a major barrier between us and eternal life. We're saying, this is too much, I can't overcome it, and it's God's fault. Again, it's not about works salvation. That's a lie. That's a lie straight from hell. There's nothing that you can do to save yourself. God's done all the work. He's done everything. All he's asking you to do, like the good sheep that you are, is to follow him. All right? And when we jump into that hole and get ourselves stuck, God's going to pull us out, dust us off, kick us in the butt, and we have to keep plodding along. But that's all it is. Keep following. Keep trusting. Stand firm with God. Don't allow all of the pretties of the world to distract you. Don't get caught up with trying to acquire all the information in the world just so you can try to come up with some type of brilliant argument of why someone should follow Jesus. Really, the simplest answer is, do you want to stop being an idiot? Then follow Jesus. Like, it doesn't get more brilliant than that. Takeaways. The promise of eternal life belongs to those who remain with Christ through the testing. Okay? There's, in the jail, I kind of brought up the whole idea of grace. And I said, okay, really great thing if you want to understand grace is this. Grace is like the bumpers on a bowling lane. Okay? How many of you are good bowlers? Perfect. You're my people. All right. I love the bumpers. You know why? Because I don't gutter. I don't gutter until it gets past the bumper. But I don't gutter for a period of time, and I feel good about myself. You can bowl, and it bounces off those suckers, and I get 1 pin. And I bowl a little bit more, and maybe get 2 pins. You can right angle it, right into that bumper, and it will slowly creep itself down the lane. It will kiss a pin, and then someone has to come and, reset the whole thing. But I'm still engaged with the lane. Grace is God allowing us to engage the lane, regardless of the mistakes we're making, to teach us and guide us how to play the game well. So that at some point he can take the bumpers off so we can really engage it, and the grace is knowing it's just a game. It's just a game. You know when grace stops being grace? You're standing there, and you say, I can't do this anymore. I'm done playing this game. I'm done looking at the same stupid lane with these same stupid pins, making the same stupid mistakes day in, day out. I'm done. I'm out. That's when grace stops being grace. When you stop engaging. So, remain with Christ in the testing. Secondly, we need to take ownership for how we respond to temptation. We need to own it. Yes, we're going to have excuses. We're going to have our problems. We need to own it. Which means if we're going to own it, what do we need to do? We need other people, guys. We need each other. We need someone here. I don't care who it is. If there's someone here that you look at, they're like, oh, they seem nice. Go talk with them. Go learn who they are. Learn their story. I mean, that's what we did for 10 weeks in Rooted. We started learning each other's stories. And people at Rooted, what did you learn about other people? We're all the same. Yep, there's no difference. We might have different details. We might have different little stories. We might have, some of us might have been a little bit more jacked up than others. We're all human. We all bleed red. We all lied at some point. And we all have put ourselves into a corner of saying, I can't do it. And no one can understand me. Nope. We hear you. We see you. We know you. We love you. We want to be with you. So get involved, share your story with one another, invite people into your mess. Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's not going to be fun. People are going to start seeing how bad and broken you actually are. Yep. But if we're going to own it, we need someone to help us own it and move forward with it. So, trials, the little devil inside of us. What are you going to do with that? What serpent are you going to start? Whose serpent are you actually going to start smashing the head of? And then who are you going to rely on to get you through it? Stay obedient, stay trustful, stay diligent, keep moving forward, and own up.